Hello and welcome. In this video, I've compiled 15 tips and tricks that I see a lot of people struggle with or I haven't really seen mentioned anywhere else. I hope you find something useful in here. So, first up we got art and separation. Draw in stuff even if you don't think you need it. Especially for the hair, give yourself more side pieces to create a realistic looking side turn. ID names. Don't put spaces or symbols in your layer names, that way Live2D will automatically make your art mesh ID the same as the layer name. This is really useful, especially if you get an error message, since Live2D will only tell you the layer ID, not the name, and as you can see here, that can get pretty confusing, especially with a lot of layers. Display quality. If your Live2D is lagging, you can try displaying your model in a lower quality to make it less laggy. Just go to Show, then Display Quality, and select the lower resolution. I'd recommend either 1/2 or 1/4 because 1/8 can get really pixelated. Dark mode. This one's more a quality of life setting, but go to Files, then Environment Settings, and change the theme to dark to get rid of all that eye-straining white. Auto mesh. Auto mesh is cool and useful, but sometimes making your own meshes can give you much better results. Two places where I'd say you almost have to make your own meshes are the mouth and the eyes, since they deform so much. Here I have an example of what the mouth looks like done with auto mesh versus making my own mesh. Parameters and combined keyforms. Let's take this deformer here that I have for moving the front hair. It's keyed to both angles X and Y to move the hair in all directions. That means I have 6 keyforms, right? Wrong. I actually have 9. How come? Well, you can see here that when I combine the two parameters, the corners are their own separate keyforms for when the head is looking diagonally. So, if you only rig X and Y and ignore these corners, you get dubious results at best. So, you don't have parameter 1 keyforms plus parameter 2 keyforms. You have parameter 1 keyforms times parameter 2 keyforms. That's why I'd recommend avoiding keying something to more than 2 parameters, since the numbers of keyforms will get out of control. For reference, if you have one object keyed with 3 keyforms to 3 parameters, you have 27 keyforms. And with 4 parameters, you have a whopping total of 81 keyforms. I do not think you want to rig all that. Don't rig on ArtMesh. So how to avoid these keyform problems? Well, first of all, don't rig on your art meshes. The shapes are harder to control, and making adjustments is harder. Use different deformers for each movement. For example, I have one deformer for body X, one for body Y and body lean, and another for body Z. And make new deformers for physics. This is similar to the last tip, but always make separate deformers for your physics. Never key any of your physics deformers to any head movement. I've seen way too many people struggling with getting their physics to work on more than one keyform because they use the wrong deformer. Back of the head. This is a mistake I see a lot of beginners make, and it's that the back of your head actually moves in the opposite direction of your face, because your head is a roundish, three-dimensional object. Here you can see that what my head looks like if I move the back of the head in the same direction as my face. He looks so flat. Blend shapes for physics. This one is more personal preference, but I like to use blend shapes for all of my physics. Blend shapes are a special type of parameter where Live2D will automatically make any corners for you, so you don't have the problem of multiplying keyforms. However, because of this, you have less control over the overall shape, so don't use this for stuff like your head angles. You can turn a keyform into a blend shape by ticking this box when you create a new parameter. Please note that you can't turn a parameter that has stuff already keyed to it into a blend shape or blend shape back into a normal parameter, so consider carefully which parameters you want to turn into blend shapes. Mouse tracking. This is for your physics settings. If you have parameters you want to have affected by mouse tracking but they aren't, for example body Y, this isn't tracked by default, you can, in your physics settings, go to Preview, then Settings of the cursor tracking, and then you get this menu. I like setting body Y to left mouse button Y so it's tracked along with body Z, and angle at Z and body Z to right mouse button X, so I can move them independently from everything else. Physics settings. I think we all know this. You make all of your physics parameters, set them all up in the physics settings, go to test it out, and it looks like this. Really jaunty and not smooth at all. You could either spend the next 2 hours of your life trying to adjust the pendulums to get it to look better, or you can also just move your mouse around a bit, then go to output settings and click decrease output. If your physics aren't moving enough, you can also try clicking increase output. For reference, this little button here labeled output maximum should be around 100. And wow, everything looks so much better now. You should still adjust your pendulums to make stuff look better, but that won't fix the jauntiness, only the specific movements. texture atlas. Next up is the texture atlas. This is really important if you want your model to export well and not lag your computer full. First of all, your texture atlas should be the last thing you make before exporting your model. During rigging, you might end up deleting duplicate layers or adding new ones that will end up taking up extra space on your atlas. When choosing the size of your atlas, never go above 4K atlases. Having 4K atlases is actually better for performance than one big 8K one. Just don't touch 16K atlases because most tracking softwares won't even import models with those ones. You'll also want to try to squeeze as many layers as you possibly can onto one texture atlas. Auto placement can be useful sometimes, but it generally uses more space than it needs to. Here are my auto placement settings. This will stop Live2D from downscaling your layers. I usually use this, and then I will adjust the layers later on so that I can fit more onto one atlas. You can check that your layers are at 100% by dragging your mouse over all of the pieces and looking that scale says 100. This way none of your pieces will look fuzzy when you export them. To save on space, you can scale down pieces that are barely visible, like the back of a jacket and such, but if it fits at 100%, leave it at 100% in your atlas. Also, make sure that none of your pieces overlap. This is especially important if your art mesh only covers a part of your drawing, like here, because auto placement only takes the size of your mesh into consideration. You can see that if I move two pieces on top of each other, you get these weird overlaps you probably don't want. Other than that, I can recommend just looking at tons of other tutorials since different people might do different things better or worse. That's how I picked up the majority of my Live2D knowledge. If you need help with something specific, there's an active Live2D Discord server that has dedicated channels for help with rigging and such, so if you have questions, you can just ask there. Of course, I'd also be more than happy to try and help you in the comments, and if you have any suggestions on tutorials you'd like to see next, please tell me. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing to my channel. See you next time. Toby out.